Hey guys, and welcome back to a new video. You want to know how I learned Android. That is at least one of the most common questions people ask me on social media, and in this video I want to share all my strategies how I learned what I know today about Android in 4 years. So as some of you might know, I am coding for roughly 12 years in total, and in the past 4 years I've been only dedicating my time towards Android. And because it seems very interesting for a lot of you how I learned what I know today, I just decided to make a video about that. And this video will be structured in 3 parts. On the one hand, it will rather be about a mistake and why I lost motivation when coding, when learning to code, because I chose the wrong learning strategy. Number 2 will then be how I regained that motivation to learn Android, because I was really only self-teaching that. I was studying CS, but my degree did not have anything to do with Android development. And number 3, what I finally recommend you to do to keep on learning even when you're self-learning Android. And you know, when I got into coding at the age of, let's say 13 to 17, that was always really enjoyable for me, but there was one big problem. And I think a lot of you will know that. So you just code an app, you code some type of software, which then just gets a few claps from your parents, but that's really it. There is simply nobody who uses your software that you just worked on. There's nobody who really benefits from that. After finishing such a program, it's really just that little piece of code wasting space on your hard drive, waiting for you to push it to Dropbox, just in case you might need it later. But you and I know you won't ever do something again with that piece of code. And that happened very often to me. I built pretty cool software. For example, I built a secret translator, which took some real text and translated it to something nobody could read who did not have the translator. With today's knowledge, that would probably be a very weak encryption, but it worked. And it was enjoyable. Or for example, I wrote a little chat messenger, which I wrote for my dad, who could then communicate with his colleague at work. And building all that was really cool. I liked it. And I also knew that you had to work on real projects in order to learn something. But I still somehow had issues working on project after project after project, because what was really missing is the feeling that what I do really has a purpose for someone. That the software somehow helps someone, that somehow really uses the software because they want to use the software and not just please me. And the only reason my parents used my software was because I was their son. And of course you would prefer your son's software over some kind of Facebook Messenger or so. But it was not because it was truly useful to them, or at least more useful than comparable software. And I am pretty sure a lot of you feel the same way. You know that you have to build projects, but you just lack the motivation to do so because you know that nothing will happen with these projects. And you're just not at the point as a developer where you can really work competitive apps that really compete with real apps that are already established on the market. And of course, by no means you have to build a competitive app in order to learn something. No, you can just start with simple Node apps, to-do apps. But I fully understand that it is hard to motivate yourself if you know that what you're building won't really be used by anyone. But let me tell you, there is a way out of this, which I found in 2019. And that was the year where I also got into social media and started posting content, posting about my journey. And that was the year where my best friend also started an Instagram page about something completely different, but it was a pure theme page where he created simple slideshows with a software called Canva. I'm pretty sure some of you will know that. It's really easy to just drag and drop some vector graphics and create Instagram posts that way. And that just looked fun to me, so I tried out the same with a topic that I was interested in back then, and that was Android. And that was the game changer for me, because I started my Instagram theme page about Android content, and I just shared everything that I just learned. And honestly, I really had no idea about Android back then, but I really learned a topic and then made a post about it based on what I learned. And to learn these topics, I was really just self-studying, I was reading the docs, I was watching YouTube tutorials at that time, and I was just building simple apps by myself. But whenever I felt like I understood something, I made a post about it. And that strategy had 3 big advantages to me. On the one hand, it suddenly gave my learning a purpose because other people could benefit from me learning something because I was teaching them something. Advantage number 2, I was learning much more thoroughly. And I still remember this as a beginner. There are always topics which aren't as interesting to you as other topics, yet these topics are still important. For example, I think it's much more exciting to actually learn something about coding a real app than, for example, learning Git. Yet that does not mean that learning Git is something that should be ignored. That is something very important if you really want to become a software developer. But then as a beginner, if you're self-learning and you don't really have a structure, you don't have some kind of professor who tells you, now you learn this, now you learn this, then it's very easy to skip these topics, or at least push these very far to the end of your learning journey, just because that is not so enjoyable to you. And even when you're then learning these topics, it's very easy that you don't learn these as thoroughly as you should. But if you share content online, what I realized is you research much more thoroughly because you don't want to spread wrong information, and you also don't want to skip important topics on your channel. And last but not least, the last advantage that had, it kept me accountable. Because as soon as you have a few hundred followers on social media and they like the content you share, then they of course also expect more content from you. And you need some kind of strategy to consistently learn things, to teach them things. Because on the one hand, it of course gives you a purpose that you teach something, but on the other hand, you of course also want to increase that audience that already exists. And that is still a big part of how I learn today, by simply making videos for which I need to make some research and then put that in an understandable format into a video. Seriously, since I am on social media, I never lost motivation to learn something. It was always fun to me, because I just had that purpose that all of you benefit from that. That's at least what I hope. But thanks to you, I just regularly get these comments that my content helped you to get a job, that my content finally made you feel confident about app development, that you maybe built your first app and you're proud of yourself. And this just keeps my learning process again much more enjoyable. So this is at least one half of how I learned today. The other half would just be by working on real-world projects. But in order to learn from real-world projects, you of course need to be at some level on your software development journey. So in my case, that would just be acting as a consultant, and clients approach me and ask me, hey Philip, can you help us with this app? Then I work on that app, and that way I also of course learn new topics. But if you are at the start of your learning journey, then that will probably not be the right way until you have some kind of foundation at least. And because I don't just want to talk about myself here, and rather also give you a recommendation on how to benefit from my experience, I of course also want to do that, because I'm pretty sure most of you will now sit there and think, okay, Philip learned a lot with posting content online, but that is not really what I want to do. Should I now really start social media? And no, you of course don't need to share content online just because you want to learn something. That is what worked for me really well, and that is what probably also works for some of you. But that's not really what I'm saying and what I want to share as a general recommendation here. What I'm saying is that you have to look one level deeper. You need to sit down and think about what really keeps learning enjoyable for you. What would really give it a purpose? So as in my case, I just felt like nobody really benefited from my software. But for you, it might be something completely different, which makes it hard for you to motivate yourself for self-learning. And you really have to feel inside of yourself a little bit to really understand what leads to you losing motivation. And if you are already at the point where you can build real apps, then my clear recommendation here would be to just do that and also publish an app to really have the motivation to build a user base, to really go through the whole process from starting an app from scratch to marketing it, to gaining a user base, not because you want to earn big money about that, but because that way you help actual users who you don't even know will download your app because they feel like it helps them in their life. But if you are not at this point yet where you can build these real apps and publish them, you need a different strategy. And I highly recommend to get a code buddy. A code buddy is in the end just another person who has comparable goals than you have, who wants to get good at the same things you want to get good at, and you just work together and enjoy the process together. And this, in my experience, really keeps the whole thing more enjoyable, more fun, because you have a buddy who is on the same journey as you are, who maybe struggles with the same problems you struggle with, and you can just motivate each other much better that way. So that could be that both of you just do their own thing, but you regularly meet to talk about your learnings, talk about your struggles, talk about how you could work on these struggles. Or what that also could just be is that you work together on one app, because that really keeps you accountable, because you don't want to disappoint your code buddy. But how do you now find such a code buddy? For that, I have created a separate channel on my public Discord server where you can look for such a code buddy for free. I will share the link to my Discord server below. Again, joining is completely free. So when you're online, then just look for the code buddy channel and then describe a little bit about yourself, talk about what you already know about Android, what you want to still learn, And then that way we can hopefully connect some people here who want to just be on that journey together. And it also doesn't need to be groups of 2 people only. If there are more people who have similar goals, then ideally you just build a group of 3, 4, 5, or even more people so you can work together on a project. So again, I will share a link to that Discord server down below. And if you want me to be your code buddy, you'll also find a link to my 10-week mentorship program in the description, where we'll just work together very closely over the course of 10 weeks to make you an industry-ready Android developer. I hope I could help some people here by sharing my learning strategy and how I managed to learn what I know today about Android in 4 years. If so, then you're happy, I'm happy, all of us are happy. Thanks so much for watching. I wish you an amazing rest of your week, and I hope I'll see you back in the next videos. Bye bye.